And I think this is just lethal anyways.
Our wills align.
Shen levels up. This gets another bonus, and we have him at lethal right now. Hey everyone, Raptorspank here. Today we have another episode of On the Grind, the show where I talk about a deck I'm playing in Ranked. First off, I'm going to break down the deck, then a couple of flex spots, and then talk about some basic mulligans. Then we'll put the deck through some games in Ranked, and then we'll review how we did afterwards. So this week we're going to be talking about Fiora Shen. Somehow I've made it this far without ever doing a deck guide on Fiora Shen, so this week we're breaking that. Particularly because it's probably in a good place for this meta. It's been in a good place, and it's probably going to still be in a good place because it didn't get nerfed at all. It didn't get touched in the slightest bit. So this is predominantly a mid-range deck that has alternate win conditions. You can sometimes be an aggro deck. That's pretty rare, but that does happen sometimes with a good caretaker start. But then you also have this big combo win condition by using Fiora. So depending on the matchup, sometimes we're going to play like a combo deck, but generally speaking, we're almost always going to be a mid-range deck where we're looking to win in the mid to late game with a lot of really powerful, cost-effective units. And then we have a huge spell package that you normally don't see a spell package this heavy in a mid-range deck, but there's a number of reasons for that. So first off, let's talk about the champion package. This starts with 3 copies of Fiora. This is obviously our combo win condition plan. If you've never seen Fiora before, how, first off, but second, she wins by killing 4 units. That gets reset if she dies, so if you play a new one, that will have to kill 4 all over again, even if you've already leveled her up. But, generally speaking, this is just a really good combo win condition. It's particularly effective against aggro decks, or decks that are going to have a lot of things like, say, Zoe, or Sparkleflies, or Eyes of the Dragon. Things that she can kill very easily without losing much health. That's where she's going to be the most effective, because those decks are going to struggle to remove her. And if you play correctly, you can play around anything that they might do to threaten Fiora, and any deck that's going to have a hard time removing Fiora in general. That's where she's going to be really, really strong. And her champion spell, also really great. We already have 2 copies of Riposte in our deck, just on top of it, so the card's definitely good in the deck. So extra Fiora's not that bad, especially since Riposte works really well with Fiora to get her kills without losing Fiora, which is kind of big with this deck. Next champion we have is Shen. Similar vein to Riposte, how we already have some. We have a lot of ways to give barrier in this deck, and a lot of things that benefit from barrier. Shen is one of those things. This is another great payoff. With a lot of challengers and caretakers, stuff like that, Shen can really push the deck out of control. We can often pull their biggest thing with some challenger that we then give a shield to, so we don't even lose the challenger, and then they can't block in a way that's effective for them. So this is a great way of keeping our board control the best out of everyone. So Shen's very good for that. Works really well with things like Fiora as well. And then late game, if he levels up, he can just pump out so much damage because of the buff 2 damage when you give something shield. It can be absolutely insane, especially if you pair it with something like Bright Steel Formation, for example. But also his champion spell can be really effective for winning out of nowhere as well, because once you've leveled up Shen, using Stand United, you can basically damage buff 2 things, and if they're unblocked, that can be very much lethal, and it all happens at burst speed, so that's a really effective way to win out of nowhere. So even his champion spell's actually pretty solid in this deck. It's not something you'll cast often, but it can be very useful. So let's talk about the follower package. First off, 2 of Fleet Feather Tracker. This is a pretty traditional Demacia mid-range card, but we're actually kind of set up to... I mean, Plaza Scouts benefits heavily from this because of Misfortune. We also benefit heavily from this because of how many barriers we can generate. So often Fleet Feather can attack without risking itself at all. So that's really strong. And just in general, it can help to protect some of our bigger units by forcing some of their bigger blockers away to a Fleet Feather. So in the early game, you'll pressure their hit points fairly quickly with this, and then also you can pull some of their more valuable units, potentially keeping Fleet Feather alive. And then in the late game, Fleet Feather's mostly going to serve as a way to pull their biggest and most important blocker away from things you don't want it to hit. Then we have 2 copies of Green Glade Caretaker. This just synergizes really well with the deck. It's one of our most aggressive 1-drops. It can block fairly well because it has 2 health instead of 1. And since we have so many ways to give barriers, I've seen these get as high as like 15 to 20 plus power fairly easily. It's not something your opponent's generally going to want to deal with. They'll want to save their removal for big important things like Fiora and Rivershaper. So when they do that, there's a lot of times you can get away with a really huge caretaker that suddenly becomes a threat that they have to deal with. And in a similar vein, we have three copies of Brightsteel Protector, which is 3/2 that gives barrier when you play it. So this is obviously just synergized really well with what we're trying to do. It gives barrier, which is great with Shen. It's also good at protecting our challengers, particularly Fiora is really good to use this on. So generally speaking, you almost never want to play this as a vanilla 3/2. You always want to play it when you're going to be able to give barrier to something else. And it just powers up things like Green Glade Caretaker, as well as giving us all that good utility for other things. So that's mostly what it's here for, and a solid body on its own for a low cost. Then we have one of the biggest followers in the deck, which is 3 copies of Rivershaper. This is how we're able to get away with such a heavy spell package, is that Rivershaper can draw so many cards for us if we keep it alive. So often just keeping this Rivershaper is so important for our strategy, or so great for our strategy, because it just keeps our hand full of all these great utility spells, while just pressuring your opponent and starting to chunk in damage. So Rivershaper is one of the best followers in the deck. It's just so good into so many matchups. Try to protect it when you can, although there's some trades that honestly you're just totally fine taking if they offer it. Then we have a 1 of Lauren Chevalier. This has a lot of ways to generate cards as well. That's pretty powerful, and if we can keep this protected, we can keep building our hand up very, very well and keeping it full of a lot of good units that it can create, like Swiftwing Lancer, for example. So this is just a great card advantage engine, essentially, that most Demacia decks don't get to use something like this, because we can very often make this so it's not trading 1 for 1 and just replacing itself in our hand. We can often get it so this survives 1 to 2 attacks, and then we make a bunch of things in hand. And then we have probably one of our best challengers, just neutral challengers anyways, which is 3 copies of Screeching Dragon. Huge body. Fury makes it get even bigger. If we can keep protecting it, it can become a huge win condition on its own just by slowly killing things and building up its power through Fury. The fact that it has Challenger is really good for sniping things that are a problem. It kind of works like removal in that way, even though we do have a fairly large removal package on our own too. So it's just a really solid body that can pressure our opponent very quickly, and it's very hard to remove at 5 health as well. Then we have 2 copies of Cytherea the Bold. This is a way for us to build a huge board state and then just blow our opponent up out of nowhere, because this will give everything fearsome, buff all of our units. It's insanely powerful, and it's just a great closer for our deck. Not something you're going to want to usually keep in your opening hand, but just an awesome top deck in a lot of situations. And in a very similar vein, 2 copies of Brightsteel Formation. This is so game-ending for so many decks at so many points. If you can land a Brightsteel Formation with a huge board, your opponent's pretty doomed usually, and especially with a Shen, this will get incredibly out of control. It constantly gives barrier every time it attacks to all of our units, so that makes it super hard for our opponent to actually pull barrier off these units and get good trades. It's a huge body on its own. It's a 9/9 for 9. Even without keyword, like any other keywords other than barrier, it's still phenomenal. And it just basically allows us to crush the mid-range matchup, because we can attack on our turn every single time without losing anything. Because barriers will just make it so if they do block, they're just going to lose whatever they block with. So it just breaks the symmetry in the mid-range matchup, so it's a great way to just end that. Now we look at our spell package. As I mentioned, this is pretty hefty, so we have 2 copies of Sharp Sight. Just a great buff spell. There's a lot of elusive threats too that this can be relevant in killing, but it's really good with like Fiora to keep her health full or high while dealing with opponent's threats, so it's really good for that. And just in general, it can occasionally steal you a game out of nowhere by buffing your unit enough to be lethal. 3 copies of Single Combat. It's the traditional Demacia removal. Still really good in this deck. You can use it with Fiora potentially to get multiple kills a turn, or if, say, you play Brightsteel Protector on the defense, give your Fiora barrier, and then your opponent's like, well, I'm not going to attack then. Well, you can use Single Combat to still get benefit out of that barrier, essentially. So there's a lot of good uses for Single Combat, and even if we're trading units, that's fine too, but a lot of times we can make our Single Combat essentially one-sided. We have a 1 of Relentless Pursuit. We're not a huge Relentless Pursuit deck, but this 1 of can just win a game out of nowhere when our opponent's least expecting it by allowing us to really break the symmetry. A lot of people don't expect you to attack twice in one turn when you're playing this deck, so sometimes they'll do a play that seems good to them, but then you Relentless Pursuit, and that blows the game wide open. For example, too, that's really good with Fiora to get 2 kills in a turn again. So there's a lot of ways that your opponent can play poorly around Relentless Pursuit, and having that 1 of is really, really good for those moments. And we can actually hit it semi-consistently because of Rivershaper drawing us spells. Then we have 3 copies of Deny. It's the Ionia classic. Answers a lot of things we're scared of, like Ruination, Vengeance. So it's just a really, really good thing. You can even use it to stop a Dragon's Rage, which can be pretty crucial. So it's just a good catch-all for anything that we would be unable to deal with otherwise. And then we have 2 copies of Riposte. Like I said, we don't want to lose a lot of our units, so we try to break the symmetry where we can. This is a great way to protect our units, and also a great way to kill really big things that we're lacking the power for, because +3 is a lot of power. And this is really good for getting the Fiora combo kill. It's really good for protecting your Rivershaper. And especially with Rivershaper, you don't even really lose much because it's going to draw you more cards. Then you have 2 copies of Spirit's Refuge. This is a good answer for burn decks, aggro decks, anything like that. This is something that allows us to get a lot of healing. Now, I'm not running any Genevieves in the deck. She was a really, really good card to use with Spirit's Refuge, but we can still do a number of things like Spirit's Refuging something, swinging, gaining a bunch of life, and then using single combat to gain even more. And generally speaking, you don't necessarily need 2 attacks for Spirit's Refuge to give you enough healing. And we've got a lot of really key power cards that can benefit from this. I mean, if you have Shen, they're going to get a damage boost if he's leveled up. If you use it on a Brightsteel formation or Cytherea the Bold, you're going to gain a ton of health. If you use it on even something like Greenglade Caretaker, if you've played enough barriers, that's going to gain you a ton of health. And then just in general, it's a great protection spell too for keeping a Rivershaper or a Fiora alive in a pinch, especially in non-aggro matchups. And then finally, we have probably our best removal in the whole deck, which is 3 copies of Concerted Strike. We have a lot of powerful units, so this can be very lethal to a number of things. We can kill a lot of stuff with it. And then sometimes we can get huge value off of this. For example, using like something that has like 5 health, you can have Rivershaper hit it first, drawing you a card, and then have Fiora hit it, which then kills it and gets another kill credit for Fiora. So we have a lot of things that can benefit from hitting stuff like Fiora, or Screeching Dragon with Fury, or the Rivershaper for drawing cards, or Laurent Chevalier for creating cards in hand. All these things benefit from strikes, so stuff like Concerted Strike that's A, we're not going to lose our unit, and B, we can kill a lot of their units while also generating all this value. There's just so much we gain from this. And it's a great answer for decks like Lee Sin, because of the fact that one of the biggest ways to prevent our stuff from working against Lee Sin is barrier on his part. So we can use Concerted Strike to have one small unit hit him, ripping barrier off, and then have our big unit kill him. Because things like Cytherea the Bold and Brightsteel Formation can kill Lee Sin in one strike. So that's another advantage that we have, and a way that Concerted Strike can be very good. So yeah, it's just a great catch-all for the deck, and we get so much value out of this card. So now let's talk about the flex spots. Alright, so for flex spots, there's a few things you can do. First off, you can play with a lot of numbers. You can go down certain shield spells, up shield spells. You can go up Relentless Pursuit if you want to be a little more aggressive. You can go up Sharp Sight if you want to have more early answers for things like damage-based removal. There's a lot of things you can do with that to play with the numbers. Go down a Brightsteel formation, go up something else, go down the Chevalier to get like an extra Cytherea the Bold. There's a number of things you could do with that. So there's lots of ways you can play with the numbers in this list because there's a lot of flexibility. But for switches, one of the biggest things I've seen is that, I want to say a couple months ago, pre-Cosmic Creation, we were seeing probably, at least in my experience, I ran into more Cytherea of Cloudfield than Fleet Feather Tracker. That's a change I've seen a number of decks do, because Cytherea basically gives you a lot more, like a better aggressive plan, essentially, because the 1 extra health can be the big difference maker. So Cytherea Cloudfield is something you could definitely consider, and in that case you probably do replace the tracker because you don't really want to replace anything higher up. The big reason that we've shifted away from this, or seen the deck shift away from this, is the fact that Zoe exists now, and that's the biggest reason to run Fleet Feather Tracker, is that because she gets started so early, you kind of need an early answer for her, and Sharp Sight works too, but having Fleet Feather Tracker is just another great early way to ensure that if they are a Zoe deck, you have an answer to Zoe. So that's the big reason the changes happen, but personally, if you're looking to make your early game a little bit better, or just stronger in general, where you can attack more aggressively, Cytherea of Cloudfield is an excellent choice. I wouldn't take it over Greenglade Caretaker, because the just sheer threat of getting that up to like 15 power is huge, but it is a replacement for Fleet Feather Tracker if you want to go a little more on the aggressive end. Then a similar thing, you can replace Tracker or Chevalier or some amount of spells for this, but you can go Egghead Researcher. This is a bit uncommon, but I have seen it a couple of times. The nice value with Egghead Researcher is that it's a decent body for blocking in the early game, but it definitely guarantees you some sort of late game threat. Now, it could be something semi-weak, just like the 4/4 for 4 with Fury, but that can still be good in this deck, even. But But generally speaking, it just ensures you have something for the late game because it's going to give you that dragon in hand. So there's a certain degree to run it. The problem is, for me, the list is just kind of too tight to fit something like this in. I'd rather have the Fleet Feather Tracker for killing something like a Zoe. And then I don't really want to lose the Chevalier or spells. It's kind of like the spells are sort of in a perfect place where cutting them can definitely hurt the deck, and I like the balance where it's at, so it's hard to squeeze this into the list. But it is reasonably strong, and it kind of does what Chevalier does. Chevalier just does more if you can attack more often with it than Egghead Researcher just creating the one. So there's a little more potential upside for that, and some of the things that it will get is better than what Egghead Researcher can get on the low end. So it's a toss-up. If you want a better answer to aggro, that can help your early game a bit more, so that's something to consider. And then probably the biggest change. This is the one that I would be most likely to do myself. Although I do think Cytherea the Bold is the best, you could replace Cytherea the Bold with Genevieve Elmheart. That's what the deck used to do. Then it kind of shifted away after the Elmheart nerfs, and just in general, so Cytherea the Bold is going to get more value out of your board state because of the Fearsome. But Genevieve gets to attack twice, which can be really good. She's got Challenger already. And the big thing is, if you have like the aggro matchup, playing her and then giving her Spirit's Refuge and attacking twice in one turn is a ton of life gain. And I can't tell you how many times I lost with Bilgewater Burn into Fiora Shen because of that exact interaction. So it's definitely something to consider. Probably Cytherea the Bold is going to win you more games, but they're both really, really good cards that can definitely vie for that spot. Now, as for the spells, one big thing you can do is you can do Prismatic Barrier. Any number of them over, say, Spirit's Refuge or some other kind of spells. Spirit's Refuge is the one I mentioned because I would say classically the deck didn't used to run Spirit's Refuge. There's just so much aggro now that it's worth running the Spirit's Refuge for the lifesteal. Prior to that, there was a lot of Prismatic Barrier because that does really work well with the whole Fiora on turn 3 plan because you can play Fiora and then Prismatic Barrier if you've banked mana the whole turn. So that 1 mana cheaper than Spirit's Refuge can be huge. I would probably replace Spirit's Refuge before I replace Riposte with this because the damage boost off Riposte is very, very important, or critical anyways. It helps Fiora kill things that she normally couldn't, and it can give you surprise wins out of nowhere. So personally, I would keep Riposte over Spirit's Refuge, but both of them are pretty hard to swap for Prismatic Barrier. This just gives you a good answer and makes your Fiora plan a little bit better. Another one that this one's really hard for me to justify, but it's something I could see some people liking, is that there's a number of things that can catch you even with the barrier. So replacing maybe Sharp Sight with some Nopifies or some number of Nopifies is something you could consider. Personally, I probably would not, but it is something if you're finding barriers not doing enough, that's another way to have an early answer. And again, this basically makes your Fiora plan a little bit stronger. So it's good if you're expecting Fiora to be a real dominant force right now. And then finally, this is like the one of ace in the hole, if you want to call it that. You can run Judgment in the deck. We have a lot of ways to get off Judgment because of Barrier, and things like Brightsteel Formation are huge, and with Fiora this provides a one-turn kill potentially, so you could run a one of Judgment. I wouldn't run more than one. There's just so many ways it can go wrong, especially right now with things like Vengeance and Deny. So it's just kind of, it's not always going to be your best strategy, but it is a card that will steal you some games and win out of nowhere because nobody will expect you to have it, to be honest. Most people wouldn't play around Judgment with this deck. So that's definitely something you consider. Now, for Mulligans, I want to just first give a quick shout out to Agigas. He posts a lot of stuff on this Reddit, so I'm sure you've all seen it. But definitely, I checked out his deck guide for this as well, which goes even more deep into Mulligans and specific matchups. And it was pretty helpful for me. I've played this deck a lot in the past, and I tend to play it a little too aggressively. And that's really not what you want to do with the deck. So I found some of his comments really insightful, because the key with this deck is you want to keep your stuff alive. It's a heavy spell package, So those don't do anything without units to benefit from them. So you want to kind of leave up mana as often as possible to keep your stuff alive. You can be a bit aggressive at times in certain matchups you're going to want to be aggressive in. But generally speaking, try to keep your stuff alive as often as possible. So into aggro matchups, you're going to want a lot of units. You're going to want to go wide. Fiora is so good in aggro matchups. As someone who plays a lot of aggro decks personally, when I hit Fiora Shen, the thing I am most scared of is Fiora. That is 100%. Most aggro decks don't have a good way or clean way to remove her. Most of their stuff can die to her without dealing substantial damage to her, so that's another problem. And so if you can keep her alive, she will win you a lot of games. So that's really good into the aggro matchup. Just make sure that you can keep her alive through damage, because especially things like discard aggro are going to have a lot of ways to pump the damage output of their units to kill her. So just keep that in mind. Be aware of that. But she's going to be really good into the aggro matchup. Otherwise, just a lot of units to clog the board and buy yourself time. Your late game is going to be better. Spirit's Refuge is another great card to have. I might not necessarily keep it in the opener. It depends. If I have a solid opener with like 3 units and a Spirit's Refuge, that I'll keep. But otherwise, I wouldn't really keep Spirit's Refuge if I'm having a hard time building a board state with that hand. Into mid-range, basically, any of your 3-power stuff is going to be strong. Rivershaper can be good too if you can keep it alive, so it keeps drawing you cards and you out-card advantage them. Lots of barriers so that you're not trading. You're just killing their stuff. That's really, really good. And then again, I mentioned this when I talked about the card specifically. Bright Steel Formation is insane in this matchup because you can keep attacking every single one of your turns and you're not going to lose anything for it. Whereas they will not have the same luxury. So that usually allows you to slowly grind the board down to the point that you kill your opponent. So that's something really good. Concerted Strike can be good too in the matchup, but you don't want to keep too much heavy stuff. You want a lot of things that can trade effectively. Stuff like Brightsteel Protector trades effectively, Fiora trades effectively, Chevalier does, Screeching Dragon's really strong. Just stuff like that that's going to help you at least go 1 for 1, if not even better than that, where you're just getting one-sided trades where their thing dies and yours lives. As for control matchups, that's when you're going to want to try and be a little more aggressive. Caretaker can be very good, especially if you're attacking on turn 2. Caretaker into Brightsteel Protector can be a ton of damage. Just try to keep your stuff alive. Deny's obviously going to be huge in this matchup because one of the scariest things is we can usually outvalue their removal by going wide, and that's the best plan to go with. And then obviously the biggest answer is something like Avalanche or Ruination. So keeping a Deny up to stop that can be really, really potent. So just keep that in mind. Look for stuff like that and just otherwise build a strong board state and just run your opponent down as quick as you can. Relentless Pursuit can be very good for that as well. So that's the basic mulligans for the deck. If you like the deck, you think it looks interesting, I'll have a deck code as well as the deck link in the description below. Now let's try it out into some matches. Alright, game 1 here, and this looks like some sort of flavor of either Celestial Invoke with Aphelios, or it could be Nightfall aggro. Fleet Feather's fine. Shen is probably really good. I don't know if I really want this Deny. Deny could be good for stopping a Vengeance at some point, but yeah, this I like better. No, that's very unfortunate.
Devotion to battle.
Okay. Yeah. That's unfortunate. Well, let's see what he does. I might throw away this Fleet Feather just to get a guaranteed Rivershaper hit in. Really depends on what he plays right now. Okay. So that means some sort of Nightfall thing coming down. Wow, did he hit all 4? That's top 4, right? And he hit something on all 4? Oh, dear lord. Alright. That's wild. Well, now it's probably not worth attacking. Because I could lose the whole board doing that. That's not ideal. I wish it showed you what weapons Aphelios took. Well, that could be relevant at some point. Let's see what he does. I'm thinking I want to play Shen this turn. So that next turn we can start doing crazy things. But depending on what he plays, it might be worth doing Concerted Strike instead. That could draw us a card off this Rivershaper, so that's pretty decent. Okay, so that's what he's gonna go for. Now, what's better? To just lose it but kill Aphelios in response? Or to keep it alive? I think keeping it alive is the right play, right? Waste of a Spirit's Refuge, but... Just grab... Stun an enemy. That's a little unfortunate. We don't really want him stunning this Shen.
Currents, pull them down.
And we keep the Fleet Feather alive? I don't know if that's right.
A gift from the river folk.
Deny's not awful. Although we can't deny that Gravitum next turn. Which is kind of what we were hoping for. Because he's gonna Gravitum and then we're not gonna be able to swing with this Shen. Oh, actually, Fiora is surprisingly good here. By my honor, you must die. I don't know how likely this is to work. I mean, the bright side is our opponent should not have too many ways to actually kill her through damage, because, I mean, it's possible they have a little more Shadow Isles, but I highly doubt it. And then we just have to kill Aphelios before he plays 3 more moon weapons. And honestly, we don't even necessarily need to. I'm not convinced that Aphelios is even that good, to be honest. But we will see. Let's see what my opponent does here. The good thing about playing Fiora and why I went Fiora over it... Yeah, okay. So I assumed he was going to do that much. The reason for playing her is that I can always Spirit's Refuge her. Whereas if I played Shen, all I had mana up for was, like, Relentless Pursuit, which we're not going to cast. Because he was just going to stun Shen, and then Relentless Pursuit is even worse. Okay. Yeah, that was honestly a fine turn for us. Ooh, Sharp Sight is very good. Now let's see what he does. We could play Shen and have Concerted Strike up, so that's pretty good. All things considered. We can also do Sharp Sight plus Relentless Pursuit. Okay. Just gonna create another moon weapon. That's potentially problematic. What are we most worried about him getting? The one that kills Fiora, maybe? Oh wait, that only targets followers, doesn't it? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't really know what he could grab here that's problematic for us. We have this Spirit's Refuge. We have Concerted Strike. We have answers for a lot of things. That's a vaguely creepy voice line. And he is digging deep into the tank for thinking there. Wow, he actually roped himself. That's incredible. Alright, play the Shen. Concerted Strike still up. Deny still up. Sharp Sight still up. Spirit's Refuge still up. We can cast anything from our hand. Man, him roping's the best thing that could happen. Coven Way, Nightfall, stun an enemy. If it's fall, we're stun it again at the beginning of next turn. It's not, so we're not worried about that. Let's see what he goes for. Oh, we probably just Sharp Sight and kill that. Yeah. And then we could take the 5. We have the Spirit's Refuge. Boom.
Sisters.
That is a big chunk. And we might come to regret that, but I kind of doubt it's going to be relevant. Man, he's thinking deep. Okay, so he did pull. He did pull that and use it. Okay. Thinking about our plays here. So obviously if we just swing with both, we can kill the Aphelios for free, but then these two trade, or actually don't even trade, he just kills the Shen. So I can always do this and then Concerted Strike. Or I can do this.
You're covered.
Duty, selfless.
I guess it's closer to leveling up Shen. That was actually a really good top deck there. And I have Concerted Strike plus Relentless Pursuit up, or like Deny and Spirit's Refuge. I could do a lot this turn. So the question is, how much can my opponent do this turn? Okay, Moon Weapon. He's looking for the stun here, which we might actually deny if he goes for it. Oh, that is the fourth one. We'll deny that. We will, in fact, deny that. That's not something we can let resolve. We need to tackle this Shen this turn. And this lets us kill Aphelios before he levels up, so that's pretty sweet. Do we? Yeah. Yes, we do. Our opponent's basically playing with their hand revealed here. So, if they block the Brightsteel Protector, I can Relentless Pursuit to kill the Overwhelmer. This is actually a surprisingly good card. Mogwai is pretty right on that one. A 5-mana 5/4 with Overwhelm that stuns is nothing to laugh about. Okay, perfect. Actually, I forgot. Fiora levels up here, so we don't even need to we don't need to kill this. Or we didn't need to deal damage here for Fiora to be able to kill it. All right. It's pretty close to leveling up Shen too. Okay. All right. Fiora's at 3 of 4. It's looking like a combo game. Depends on what my opponent has. Concerted Strike leaves 4 mana. So I don't want to play this Green Glade Caretaker. Because I want to be able to do Spirit's Refuge and Concerted. And then, if push comes to shove, Concerted plus single combat could work depending on what my opponent does. What we're most worried about right now is a Vengeance. Vengeance is scary. If I Concerted Strike and then he Vengeances, we're in trouble. Brave playing this Solari Soldier though. But he's now down to 7 mana. So, and I think that means we win. Yeah, that should do it. Alright, perfect. Let's go with this, because that's probably the hardest thing for him to... Oh, maybe not. Let's go with this. And we will set it like that. Because that should be Fiora winning. And this way, if he has a pump spell, Fiora still kills it. Boom. There we go. And that's the power of Fiora. Man, I haven't won a Fiora game in quite a while. Been avoiding this champion a lot. But yeah, that's an excellent start there with the win over the Aphelios, I guess, Nightfall deck? Wasn't really Invoke. But yeah, alright, on to the next. Alright, discard aggro. This matchup can be sketchy. Fiora's definitely good here, though. Lots of things Fiora can kill. And speaking of which, not a lot of ways to protect her with this hand, though. This is a bit greedy. Relentless Pursuit can really catch people off guard with this deck, though. Okay, that's better. That's a lot better. Ugh. Alright, well, they're getting started quick. That could be fairly bad for us. I'll play that, yeah. That's a chump blocker is what that is. Yep, we're fine with that. He didn't develop any board this turn. That is about as ideal as it can be. Okay. See if he has a Get Excited. Maybe single combat would have been good as an answer to Get Excited. Or at least to get some value out of them Get Exciting our Fiora. He's trying to decide if he wants to swing, I think. Because if he has Get Excited, he should just go for it. Yeah, I mean, I'll take that hit. We don't want to put Fiora in front of that. High chance of visions with how they were playing. There's a very good chance they had some sort of visions effect. Maybe it was worth playing Chevalier there just to kill a 1/1, but stress testing. Okay. Neat. Discarded, draw 1. Oh, they had double stress testing. Oh dear lord. No. We have barrier. Let's go for this. Okay, that's highly unfortunate. Yep. Well, that's probably GG. It cost him a bit, but that's probably enough for him to win the game. Unfortunately. Unless we can find Fiora off the top. Kind of had exactly that problem I was worried we were going to have, which is not any way or many ways to protect her. I don't even know what he lost. I wish they really showed you in the feed what they discard at the end of turn. Okay. Yeah, I think I'll still just... I'll let that happen, play this.
I stand for Noxus!
So we're just dead? Not quite dead. But very easily dead to any amount of burn. Which is not a position we ever want to be in. This is better than that. Do I want to... No. Okay. Well, that's sweet. Draven, okay. Okay. Yeah. Pretty sure this game is over. He should just open attack here. Okay. So if we block here, I can kill one thing. Yeah, no, that's game. Alright, well. Opponent got lucky. Double Get Excited, it's really, really good. So, yeah. And double stress testing, so they were able to draw cards consistently. So, yep, we're actually decent into that matchup. Most people seem to say it's about a 50-50 matchup, so sometimes they'll have a hand like that, and my hand was pretty bad. It was a little greedy of me to keep that Concerted Strike. I should have pitched it for more early game aggression, just to buy myself time. So that's a little bad on me for keeping that hand, but yeah, on to the next. Alright, Israel Draven, huh? Now this matchup's supposed to be bad, I believe. Not really one we're going to win through a Fiora. Sharp Sight's so good in this matchup. I'm gonna pitch Chevalier though. That's so greedy. We could get all spells, but alright, alright. There we go. That's what we were looking for.
I am one with the land.
Double Rivershaper can be really good, especially since we're going to bank a Sharp Sight. I would have been shocked if he tried to Mystic Shot that. Okay. I'm even more shocked now. So, obviously that was, he figured I might have Sharp Sight and he didn't want to take as much damage. But honestly, that was not great on his part. No, Sharp Sight and it dies anyways. Okay. So, we're probably going to just swing with it. I think.
You're in over your head. Got an axe with your name.
Let's see what he does. See if he pitches an axe. Okay, that's what he's gonna go for. That's probably fine. Because we still killed Draven. And he probably has some other answer if we fire this Spirit's Refuge, so... Now let's see what he plays. We're probably not going to win through Fiora. I'd love to play this Fiora, but the problem is that that's not... I mean, I guess we'll play it because it trades here nicely, but we're almost certainly not going to win through Fiora. It'll be at least hard pushed for us to do that. Okay. Alright, alright, alright. We will try just because I found this Shen. Let's see if he has the Thermo. And he does. Now, yeah, I think this is probably for the best. Get some value out of that.
This will be quick.
Do I play Cytherea? I don't know if I do. We kind of... We're a deck that wants to have its mana available. Ugh.
The eye of twilight sees all.
I expect this Sentry here tapping down something. Yep. Is anybody shocked? And then Ravenous Flock to kill her. Yep. So, as I mentioned, this is a really bad matchup, and we are seeing it on full display here. We've managed to hit our opponent once for exactly 1 point of damage, and they're shredding our board, despite card draw that we had.
Don't blink or you miss me.
I can kill that at least.
Water changes but never breaks.
Watch
And we can't let that hit. Yeah. Let's go for this. Oh, he can level up the Ezreal and then it doesn't even matter. Oh dear lord. That's a way to go about it. Okay. Interesting. So what we're gonna take a big hit here. Because we take 2 there, then another 2 from him, down to 9. Damage him, draw a card, then trade, draw a card. Yeah, this game is very much over. I'm trying to think how we even come back into this. We play the Cytherea, that's for sure. He plays Captain Farron, and then we lose the game. Do I go for this? Sure. Better now than before the stun hits. Even though this could kill Cytherea. Okay. So he's just trying to get one more trigger in. Yeah. Well, Yep, this is pretty much GG. I'll run out this Caretaker just to have something on board. Spells we drew were pretty poor too, unfortunately. Okay, that's not bad. That is bad. Okay, that's not a Captain Farron at least.
Got your back.
See what he has. At least we have a. At least these denies could save us from lethal burn. Unless he plays an Ezreal right now, then we're just kind of dead.
Let's boogie.
Fall by my sword.
Yeah, it's worth it. And we will deny that. Is his last spell a burn spell? Nope. Alright, cool. We will take that. Double axes and an unknown. What's the unknown? Thermo. Okay. Can't do anything about that, sadly. But his hand is now empty. That is one of our best possible top decks. Now we have two 9/9s. What you got? And we still have Deny up too. I mean, this does kill our opponent very quickly if they don't have anything else.
Don't blink, or you'll
Oh, should I have actually... should I have Spirits Refuged? Ooh. That might have been smart of me to Spirits Refuge. Yep. That has us dead, right?
It's not bragging if you can back.
Okay.
Nailed it.
And now he Mystic Shots. Well, that's all I could do. I should have... So the mistake there was I should have Spirits Refuge. He had no way to kill any of the things I had there before they did damage. So Spirits Refuging Brightsteel formation, as weird as that sounds, was my best play because it would have gained me 9 health. I mean, if he has it, he should just fire it. It's not going to get any better. Yeah, that's GG. Yep. And there it is. Yeah, that was our mistake again. That's 2 bad games in a row, too. Some big misplays. I shouldn't have pulled the one thing with Fiora, and I shouldn't have. I should have fired Spirit's Refuge there. So that one's on me. We actually managed to claw our way back into that one. One of our best possible top decks there, but the loss just comes down to not playing aggressively enough when I had to. I didn't have a choice there. I had to go for the healing. So unfortunate. And our opponent found the Ezreal, but yeah, bad matchup, and that's exactly why. So on to the next. Alright, Bilge, Water, Burn. Interesting. This is another one where we're going to want Fiora. So, a lot of people in rank doing exactly what was expected. They're just grinding aggro decks to try and beat all the people playing silly things. Like Aphelios. So, not terribly surprising. I kind of figured we'd see more Aphelios, and we're not, so that is a little bit surprising, but... Oh, good. He let me play this Brightsteel Protector. That was a mistake on his part. Turn 3, and he hasn't done anything yet, so that's, that is ideal.
Rivershape the land and give it life.
Honestly, I don't really need to play anything, or, attack here.
Fortune favors the bold.
I mean, I can attack with this. Anything that blocks dies.
You poor thing.
Yeah, that's fine.
Press on.
That's a trade that's honestly worth taking.
Gotta go with the flow.
Is it worth killing that? No, because I'd lose my own stuff. I can take the 4.
Love ya.
Yeah, that's the first damage he's done is on turn 4, so that's pretty ideal. And we get to kill Misfortune with Screeching Dragon this turn. If he tries to Fervor, we can single combat in response, so that is also good. Actually, there's an argument to be made for just killing Zap here, but I think we'll go for the Misfortune. I expect Noxian Fervor here. Yeah. Alright, and we single combat in response. We really don't want him dealing damage to our Nexus this turn, because we're trying to buy more time before Gangplank happens.
Coming in hot!
Alright, let's see what he does. Oh, I like that. I like that a lot.
I have my orders.
Okay. Play Fleet Feather.
Who's angry for action?
Alright, let's see what he does.
Let's do this.
Yep, that's what we expected. Okay, so I think now we're just kind of on the trade everything plan. Except for obviously we're going to use this to keep him alive.
Nature blesses her followers.
And I think we can take the rest of that. Although there is an argument for trading into Legion Saboteur too. Yeah.
Stay back.
Not ideal, but
A gift from
we want to keep control of the board. And letting this continue to hit us with its attack trigger is going to be bad for us. But we gained a nice little 5 there. Screeching Dragon's huge, so that could work well for us. And also a Fiora works really well for us when we have double Concerted Strike. That's actually phenomenal what just happened. And now he won't want to play a keg either. Okay, well, we will deny that. We don't want to take a hit that big. Alright, and we can kill his board. Perfect. Now, Fiora's at 1. We don't have enough spells to win off Fiora right away, but we are getting close.
my boat, my rule.
Okay.
Remember the objectives.
I think we kill that, right? Now, unfortunately, I can't kill that with Fiora. But I can at least kill it. I don't think the sad part is... Oh, alright, well, we win. Okay, I was going to say, I don't think we can play the Brightsteel Protector next turn, because we kind of needed to keep that deny up. But doesn't even matter, our opponent surrendered, so that's ideal. That's how the aggro matchup's supposed to look. Not the cleanest, but fairly strong there, considering we bricked our opponent until turn 4 for dealing damage. So that's definitely how you want the aggro matchup to look. So yeah, on to the next. Okay, interesting. So this is almost certainly Invoke. Fiora could be really good here, and that is the Fiora. We will definitely keep Sharpsight as well, because Fiora plus Sharpsight is extraordinarily good here. Oh, and single combat too. This is pretty good. Decent chance they've got some number of hushes though, and that's the big concern. Oh, perfect.
I am one with the land.
Now, chances are I'm still not going to play Brightsteel Protector on turn 2. Because there's a good chance I'm going to want to bank this Sharpsight. I might even let this Zoe actually hit me. So obviously I could Sharpsight to kill her. And my opponent can't do anything about that if I do. But this is a perfect target to hit with Fiora. So I think that's a better plan for me. We'll see if I regret that. But there shouldn't be much that he can do to really cause problems for me here. Best case scenario maybe is like super cool star chart, get Crescent Strike, cast Crescent Strike. And even then, that's still not going to work because I'm just going to single combat in response. So we'll see what he does here.
Riddle me something cool. I call this constellation the
Okay.
jump rope.
I never
Well, we
tried
won't swing with the Green Glade Caretaker then. But yeah, one Zoe down, 2 more to go. Now what he's gonna try to do is kill Fiora with this serpent. Okay. Because he did that, I think we play Shen.
Know your path to the mountain changes.
I'm trying to think what he could do that's going to really shut us down. He's thinking about it. Alright. So I think... So the biggest thing I'm thinking of is Hush. And I think Sharp Sight will actually get around that. Because if he Hushes now, we won't get the kill trigger. But I think she'll drop to a 3-3, which means she'll still live. And Pale Cascade no longer giving +2 means that that won't work. Alright, well, perfect. Fiora's leveled up. And that Mountain Strider dies next turn. Oh, right, I didn't even think, and I have Deny too, so if he did happen to hit Comet, which was what I'm most scared of right now, if he hit Comet, we're still going to be fine. And on schedule to get a Fiora kill. Okay, Hush is... Yeah, that's sad. Okay. That's interesting, to say the least. Well, we will do this and see if he has another one. And he's going to take a huge chunk now, regardless. Alright. Well, we didn't get the kill trigger, and that's a little sad, but... Otherwise, not too bad. Fiora lived. We did a ton of damage. That's about as much as we could ask for. So they have, what, 1 Celestial in hand currently, so we're not scared of, like, the Obliterate. We are scared of that right there getting a Comet. That is something we are concerned of. Which is why we're going to do this and keep this Deny up. Man, Shen's so close to leveling. Oh, man. Oh, we are living in Christmas land right now. Woo! Alright. 1 Celestial left in hand. And I think this is just lethal. Anyways.
Our wills aligned.
Shen levels up. This gets another bonus, and we have him at lethal right now. So if he has a Hush, he has to use that on Caretaker, he's dead. Okay. What? Interesting. He wasn't actually dead to that attack, but then again, I suppose he was so far up against the wall that he probably had no real coming back from that. So yeah, not bad at all. Pretty ideal. 3-2 despite the personal misplays in game 3. So yeah, not bad, although much worse than I would expect out of this deck. So that's a little disappointing, but those were some decent matchups to give you a breadth of Fiora Shen. So yeah, alright. Not bad at all. Alright, so how do we do in our matches? Well, first off, I want to apologize a little bit because I was feeling a little bit under the weather, a little bit sick when I did that recording. So I'm going to chalk up losing that Ezreal Draven game to that. And not just being a colossal idiot. But in our matches, we went 3-2, which is not where I expected that deck to end up. I expected a little bit better, to be honest, and I think the deck deserves a little bit better. And it should have been a 4-1, realistically speaking, if I'd done Spirit's Refuge like I should have. We would have won that game, so that's a little bit unfortunate on my part. But, you know, is what it is. That was my mistake. I've played a few more games because I wanted to give a good picture of the deck, and right now I'm 6-3 on it. So things went fairly well since then. So that's a 67% win rate. The deck is very, very good. Might even be what I hit Masters off of. We'll see. I'm definitely going to grind it a bit more because it's just a super consistent deck right now. And the decks we played against after recording, we got a rematch against Discard Aggro. That went much better. Two Piltover Aphelios decks that, honestly, I don't think they're very good. They weren't close games. Not even a little bit, to be honest. Even the ones that took a long time, it would still ended up being me hitting them to -1 and being at 20 health and not even gaining life off of Spirit's Refuge. So, yeah, that's not really a close matchup and not what I would advise doing if you're going to go that route. And then we lost to Piltover. We lost to TF Fizz last week's On the Grind video. So that's another one where it's kind of sketchy. It can go either way, and in the end, they had enough. I'm trying to remember what exactly happened. I think they killed Fiora before she could win the game, but yeah, it wasn't great. I got them low. I got them to at least 10, I think, but in the end, elusives are kind of a problem for the deck in general. As is often the case, most mid-range decks are weak to elusives, and the same is true for us. I countered their Mind Meld, but because I'm a horrible person, and I already knew it didn't matter. I was going to lose regardless. I was at 2 health, and they had like 4 flyers, and I had nothing else. I just had a riposte and 2 denies, I think. So, yeah, I did that. That was a little bit mean, but yeah, that's a matchup that's kind of going to be rough no matter what. So that's not terribly surprising. But yeah, just in general, it's a really solid deck. It did after playing some more games, it did about as well as I expected. So it's just a really consistent deck that gives you a couple of different ways to win. And even though I've I think so far only gotten 1 win off of Fiora, I got someone who scooped to a Fiora, which was pretty funny because they had only 1 card in hand and was a Super Mega Death Rocket, and Fiora was at 1 health, so I don't know why they really conceded that game. They had enough blockers to block my open attack, and I was at 8 health, so that would have dropped me to 4. So, definitely winnable from that spot, but they scooped. Discard aggro. I mean, I was definitely favored. I had a solid board state. What they had wasn't very good. I think I'd killed all their elusives at that point. So, yeah, I mean, and if I drew a Spirit's Refuge, it was over for them. So that's probably why. But they could have won that one. So that one's a little bit dicier on the statistics. But yeah, it's a very consistent deck. And I only won with the Fiora once, but the thing is, they spend so many resources, your opponents, on killing Fiora that you usually end up winning fairly easily through the mid-range board control. So, yeah, it's a solid deck, multiple ways to win. It can even be aggressive in the right matchup. So it's very hard for your opponent to deal with, and Rivershaper is a pretty ruthless card, as funny as that might seem for a 3-mana 2/2, but it draws you so many cards that it's just incredibly difficult for other decks to deal with that level of card advantage, especially when you start adding on stuff like Chevalier that draws you units as well, or creates you units as well. So, yeah, it's a deck that does a lot of things and does them all very well. So, yeah, it's a solid deck if you're looking to grind out. I highly recommend it. Now's probably about the best time, too, because it does just shred through Aphelios decks. So, I mean, the Fizz TF deck probably will do the same, so that's another good one to consider. But, yeah, it's a really, really solid deck. It does exactly what I expected to do. It's still an absolute workhorse. It can really carry games and just carry you through the meta, so I highly recommend it. So, thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment below, and subscribe for more videos just like it.